Today I've got the fantastic Sharon Cawley from Conexus Tuition. Sharon and I have already had a really good chat offline, so I know this is going to be a brilliant episode. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very kindly, Kevin.
Really looking forward to this one. Sharon, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about Conexus Tuition as well.
Oh, right, okay. With the greatest of pleasure. When anybody asks me that question, then please feel free to cut me off.
I was going to say, I'll give you the short version.
When after 40 minutes, I'm still regaling how much I love my business. So Conexus Tuition as a business, because I am the founder I still have my original Conexus Tuition. Started in 2013 when I hemorrhaged out of the classroom as an English teacher, like many of the heroes in our profession are doing at the moment. And I realised that the world of tuition was the best of both worlds. You could do business, be entrepreneurial, have your own timetable, but at the same time, you're still delivering the subject you love. And that boomed. Group tuition in church halls boomed. So in 2018, 2019, having witnessed the Stagecoach franchise model, fantastic for dance, music and drama, I realised that Conexus was absolutely primed to follow in the footsteps of the great Stephanie Manuel. So started franchising in 2018. We're now 2023. I am now the CEO, which I had to look up in the first instance to work out what a CEO actually meant. I'm the CEO of Conexus. We have a head office team of 7 full-time members of staff supporting our franchisees in Warrington.
That's really fast to get to that sort of level of team as well.
Because I will talk to you about some of my quick wins and my successes, no doubt, over the course of the next couple of minutes. Yeah. And we now have UK-wide franchises, teacher-led. All of us are ex-teachers. And we have BFA accreditation. We're a CPD accredited organisation. And we are an approved partner with the National Tutoring Programme with the government and the Department for Education.
Wow. So how many franchisees do you have now?
We've about 30 franchisees with some joint ventures, with some solos, but 30.
Fantastic. So, so you've already got onto my next question about being a franchisor and like how you got into that. So tell me a little bit more. I mean, you've kind of alluded to that, but tell me a little bit more about your journey and sort of what was frustrating you in the classroom. You explained that a little bit, but just dig into that a little bit more.
So it was a typical situation. It was about 2011, 2012, and things were coalescing with me both professionally and privately. My marriage broke down in 2012. I exited the classroom. The pressures are best represented in a Facebook group that I run co-founded with Sarah Dunwood, who's the COO at Conexus Tuition. We have a Facebook page called Life After Teaching, Exit the Classroom and Thrive. And as of this morning, we have 136,000 members in that group who have clicked on a Facebook page that says Exit the Classroom and Thrive. Yeah. So like most institutions and organisations, they're subject to toxic cultures, unrealistic workload and expectations. We have monitoring systems like Ofsted, which can be used as punitive measures by toxic head teachers. And fundamentally, the teaching workload is such that you can be having an 80-hour working week, marking, planning, preparing, and it's the usual things. And actually, it's not even a greatly well-paid profession either when you scale things down. So 2012, I stood out of the classroom and said, there's got to be something better for me.
It's kind of a profession, really. It's really a lifestyle dressed up as a profession. You know, it's kind of this profession, but actually, you kind of just takes over your whole life, doesn't it?
Correct. Especially when the false gods of the 14 weeks paid holiday a year, you finish at 3 o'clock, You know, you can sit down
Yeah,
whenever
you
you want.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's becoming insurmountable. Don't get me wrong, there's some fantastic schools. We're in and out of some of the great examples of how schools should be run. But generally, teaching is on its knees. It's on its knees,
Yeah.
which is why when I came out, I realised I hadn't de-skilled myself massively in terms of I was GCSE English. I knew nothing about business, but I knew I could move a kid up a couple of sets in about half a term, sitting around my kitchen table, which is where the business started from, around the kitchen table, and then evolved into where it is now.
Well, that brings me nicely on to my next question. So I would imagine you kind of coming into franchising and setting up your own business and then, helping other people set up their businesses. What are some of the key challenges you faced as a franchisor, and like, how did you overcome those?
Okay, so I am a firm believer in if I don't know it, I'll know a man or a woman who does. So I have always believed in outsourcing help support. I pride myself in the head office team because we have myself, we have a COO, a CIO, a CFO, we have a C-suite of people. And I always want to be the person sat around the table that knows the least. So
Right.
I've never
Yes, very
been
good. That's a good way to put it.
never ever been somebody who has gone, right, let me fathom this franchising. If I don't know it, I want to sit opposite an industry expert. And I think one of the challenges that became the bedrock of our success was I reinvested money, and always have, from the success of the founding business. I saw financially the success of the original Conexus tuition as a source of income to go and seek help. So I have had business consultants, I've had counsellors, all sorts of industry experts who come in. And that helped me learn to be a franchisor, because in 2018, 2019, I started a brand new business. I know everything about setting up a tuition business, inside and out, because I did the hard yards. I knew nothing about my new business, and my new business was being a franchisor. Now I could
This is what intrigued me, which is so obvious when you said it. We had this chat the other day, sort of in preparation for this, and I thought, oh yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I really like the way I've not heard anybody else talk about it like this. So yeah, it's a really interesting. Sorry, I'll let you carry on.
I love the fact I could say, I've been a teacher for 26 years. There's nothing I don't know about the GCSE curriculum. I set up a very successful tuition business from scratch. Knew bugger all about being a franchisor. Knew it was the route I wanted to go down, because I think people who've had to found a business reach that pinch point. I cannot scale. I'm drowning, but I know I want to do this, and I want to be more than just a one-man band. I'd seen the world of franchising working really, really successfully, because my business was in and out of community centres and church halls. So not only did my sister have a Stagecoach franchise, but as I was exiting one room, Jolly Phonics was coming in another room, or Baby Sensory was coming in another room, because that was the business model. And I could talk a glass eye to sleep. So I'd be chatting to Doreen, who was setting up Baby Sensory, and I'd be saying, is this your business? Oh no, it's franchise. You get all your stuff, they teach you how to do it. So the gods were sending me messages time and time again about franchising, but I knew nothing about it. So I had to make it my business to learn the difference between running a tuition business and being a franchisor.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really, and it sounds like you say you've not been shy about just seeking out that help, and not being proud about it, which is clearly served you very, very well.
I think, and particularly, you and I connected on LinkedIn. One of the differences, I think, that, and it's probably a misconception that I had early doors, that the world of business was about competition. Actually, in my experience, I found it quite different. The world of business has been about collaboration.
Interesting.
People,
Yeah.
they want to share. You go on LinkedIn as a platform of connection, people adding value. The business world is collaborative. And I've always embraced that, and particularly the franchising world.
I was going to say, that's been my experience, definitely more so than others, because the whole model is based on collaboration, right? That's connection.
Yeah. So I honed my skills. I'm an intelligent person, and I've always had the belief that if someone's doing it, I can do it. If they're doing it, apart from when it comes to sport, I'm never going to be able to do hurdles. So if somebody's jumping hurdles, I'm not going to be able to do it. But in the world of business and intelligence and entrepreneurialism, if somebody is doing it, I can do it. And I always looked to people who I admired and I stalked them, because I do believe that the stalk is a very, very good position. Get your deer stalker on, get your binoculars, metaphorically, and go and stalk people if you want to learn about business.
Well, that brings me on really nice, because we were talking, obviously this podcast is the main thrust of it is about video and content marketing and so on, and I know we had a interesting discussion, and you put it like this, and I've heard it described elsewhere like that, about how video content and other forms of content allow you to, I think you used the phrase stalk something. So tell us a little bit more about that. What do you mean by that?
I think in the world of franchising, you've got to position yourself with this mindset. The price point of a franchise fee, let's say it's between £8,000 and £50,000. People think that is the main barrier to entry for a franchise. It isn't. People will go out and pay that for a car. When you are actually entering into a partnership with somebody as a franchise, you're asking them to change their lives. You are actually asking them to do something that's going to impact what they know is happening now in their home. That mum or dad might be starting a new business, they might be taking their family's security, but fundamentally you're asking them to change their lifestyle and their lives. Now, albeit for the better, but that's not a purchase that takes place on a whim. You can't take it back.
Yeah.
It's not quite working. So what is absolutely crucial for anybody who is entering into a franchise agreement is know who you are going into business with. Absolutely do your homework. Now, we are British Franchise Association. We're members of the BFA. So straight away, we have ethics that we have got to adhere to in order to have that badge of honour. But actually, I've got to have those ethics. And my ethics have got to be writ large throughout everything I do. Whether it be you meet me face to face, whether it be you look at my content across a variety of different platforms, you are going into business with me. And I am the figurehead of that business. So everything that I stand for trickles down in that business and becomes its lifeblood. So I have made it easy. If you want to stalk me, I'm going to make it easy for you, because I would want to stalk somebody. Because actually, if I'm not easy to stalk, have I got something to hide?
Right, that's interesting, yeah.
So I'm writ large in my Facebook group, in Life After Teaching. I'm writ large in my messaging across a variety of different formats, whether it be the website, whether it be social media. And you're absolutely right. People want to see it in different forms. So you can only read so much. It's your visual, audio, or kinesthetic appeal, isn't it? You can only read so much content for so long. You can only look at so many photographs, but eventually you want to hear somebody's voice. And I think the voice is the important part, whether it be audio or video. The voice gives you a 3D personality. And obviously, when you've got this gruff northern accent like I am, nobody's ever going to pick the phone up and pretend to be Sharon Cawley from Conexus Tuition. But they start to hear your voice. And I think that is one of the biggest starting points in know, like, and trust. Not only do they hear your message, not only do they understand your ethics, but they hear you. Whether that's in their car, in their ears, whether that's sat like this would be now me watching something, all of a sudden you have become a real person. And I think that's the power of the 3D, the video. Now we have, as I say, at every single stage we are, I invest. I invest and I outsource. So we outsourced video production on a couple of occasions, particularly on one where at our annual conference. We were able to bring the voices of the franchisees alive, telling their stories. There is nothing more powerful than listening to Beth Watson from Preston talk about how she went home and discussed the franchise with her husband. Listening to Beth and watching Beth. I'm never going to capture that in a Facebook post. I'm never going to do that. But we made a decision that when we did use video, we would allow that to be as authentic as everything else we did. We didn't put our franchisees in a room with a script.
Yeah.
We didn't tell our production company, we gave them our brand strategy, our brand messaging, who we are. And as always, through every step of the way, I trusted the experts to do what they do best. Go and do it for me. Because the last thing I would have done using video is be at the side with a clapperboard, suddenly thinking I'm a director. Get on with it. I trust you. This is our messaging.
It's so refreshing to hear that. I've worked with some extremely senior people at a very large blue chip company, and most of them were good at that. But there was one guy I remember who was like basically telling me how to do my job, and I'm like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to. Of course, it didn't work. It wasn't very good because he just So
and that
very good.
That probably said more about the way he ran his company. My starting point was, if I am the person in the room who knows the most, I'm in the wrong room. You know, and I'm certainly
not. What am I paying these guys for?
100%. I'm not giving you top dollar to make me a really great production video and then tell you what you should do with your lighting. But no, and I think that's what's important about the content. If you are putting yourself out there, which is difficult, you know. It's not as, you know, people who jump on podcasts or they do videos, they do talking heads, they'll talk to anybody. There had to come a pain threshold that went through to do that.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's
not easy. It's not easy. Not when you get to our age. What are we, Kevin? About 35, 36?
Yeah, coming up to 37.
Yeah, just nudging.
And the rest.
Well, like me, once you're in your fifth decade of life, you have to do a lot of work that sits around the mindset of doing that, because you are stepping through a vulnerability, particularly where the moving image is concerned. But I think once you break through that vulnerability and you embrace it, that's where the true results come into play, which is on the other side of your fear. So yeah, video, multiple aspects of content is something that served us really well.
I think what was interesting there, I've not heard, again, I think it's very perceptive. I've not really heard, I often talk about the importance of sound, but that, what makes, so if we just turn the sound off now, me just waving my arms around wouldn't be particularly engaging. It's my voice, like you say, it's the voice that really connects. And I think what's going to be, I don't know how much you've played around with all these AI tools that are coming out, but I think one of the things I've shared a few times, probably shared on this podcast before, is that I think as AI becomes more prevalent, you know, you're getting things like I think it's called synesthesia or something like that, where you can basically type in a script and a sort of an avatar person sort of looks a bit like somebody who might work for your company will sort of say your script. And they're all right, but they just look very anodyne. They don't really have that sort of engaging, like So I was filming my wife for a bunch of videos for her website over the past couple of days. She's so animated. There's no way you could reproduce that with AI. And why would you? Because it's her, and you're with your voice and your personality, your experience. I think that's going to be really powerful as all of that content is going to become more relevant over the next year, as it to sort of cut through that noise of stuff that we're about to be overwhelmed by.
100%, and especially if what you are saying is consistent.
Yeah.
That's the key. I've stalked people in the franchise world. Of course I have. And then all of a sudden, it is I think it's so natural to build up and know, like, and trust. It is what we want to do. Nobody, if they're like me, goes into following somebody hoping that they trip themselves up. We've almost got a confirmation bias. We want the messaging to be consistent. We want to almost hear some of the same anecdotes. We want to say, oh yeah, I know where she's going to go with this one because she's talked about this before. So we want that confirmation bias that the person that we are following, we have made a good decision about. Nobody starts to do the stalking to trip them up. But the minute you're not authentic, the minute you say something and you go, hang on, she said for 15 years she worked in advertising. Now she's saying for the last 15 years that she actually, and the minute you get that ick, hang on, that doesn't add up. I think it's almost impossible then. I think it's almost impossible to recapture that initial trust that we give, because I think people give the trust in the know, like, and trust in the first instance. There's only probably a small proportion of people who are cynical from the starting point, but the minute you lose it, nobody's going to sit there and sing somebody's praises and go, Sharon Cawley's fantastic, blah, blah, blah. But the minute they uncover you, they'll tell the world. There's something about her.
As well about know, like, trust as well, though. Like for you were saying about the I'm not sure I would agree with people trust you to start with. They might like you. I think this sounds interesting, but like you said, that if you were wanting someone to become your franchisee and change their life, I think they might say, well, Sharon, this sounds really interesting. I'm just not sure it's right for me, or I'm not yet totally convinced it would work. I'm probably not the sort of person that could do this. And you're thinking, well, you may or may not be, but they don't necessarily know you. You don't even know they exist yet because they're still stalking you, right? So I think that you're trying to take them on that journey to build the trust up enough that not just they trust you, but they trust the message and that it will work for them.
I'm the kind of person, and if we look at the word trust, I pretty much believe what I read. Now, I know there's a filter on social media. I get that. But I am the kind of person, if they put a post on social media, I trust that it is. I trust that it's actually the truth. So I think that's what I meant by we trust in the first instance. Okay, nobody's going to trust me on site to start signing over big wads of money. I get that. But the trust element comes that we actually believe what we are reading. We trust it until we're proven otherwise. When it actually comes to trusting an individual, that's when you've got to build and build and build the consistency there. So yeah, I take your point on what you've just said there.
You've reassured me, because I was banging on about the AI stuff and I thought, oh, I've mentioned this before. And then you basically said it's good when people you read use their anecdotes. So I feel validated. So that's brilliant. I use my anecdotes a lot. So
there you were going. You're going, right? Okay, yeah, I've not let myself down there. I am genuinely saying the same thing. And actually, that's when it comes to, I think people get themselves in a pickle because they have faked. And then you've got to try, if you are just speaking from the heart about what you do, particularly, and I think I'm further down the road in franchising. It is really difficult in the first instance to set yourself up with authenticity, because actually in 2018, I didn't have a business. So how do I actually, because one of the challenges that you face as an initial and an early doors franchisor is, how do you get people to come on board with you when you've no evidence base at all that you can do it? And I think that's where people start with difficulties. One of the best pieces of advice I could give to any franchisor who's starting out is see the first cohort, or at least the first 2 years as your role as a franchisor, as an extended beta test.
Yeah.
Do not think your journey in the world of franchising starts from the minute you sign your first franchisee, because you evolve that quickly that your operations manual, my first operations manual was in a ring binder. We now have a knowledge base, a ticketing system, a searchable piece of software. We've evolved. It bears no difference whatsoever. It bears no similarity whatsoever to where we were. And I think, had I have seen that at the time as a beta period rather than the real deal, I think I would have been more philosophical about what I was doing. I would have been more reflective rather than thinking, this is it, this is how it should be.
Yeah.
I also think that people talk about their initial franchisees as not being the right fit. My initial franchisees were exactly the right fit for what I needed at the time.
Right.
They wouldn't be the right fit now. My initial franchisees weren't teachers. They were business people who were not risk averse like teachers tend to be. They saw a great opportunity within the tuition business, and then they went for it. They weren't right because they didn't have a background in education. So they very quickly became out of their depth in the world that we were working within.
Right.
I would never have got to that point had my beta testing mentality, and I would never
because they're entrepreneurial, they were prepared to take the risk.
Correct.
Whereas maybe you wouldn't have got any teachers to start with, right? Yeah.
100%. So every single part of my journey, I never look back on it and say, oh, well, that was a complete mistake. No, that's what the business needed at the time. It needed entrepreneurial spirited individuals to come on board and be franchisees. We needed to work through where it didn't work, why they weren't ideal, because I'd got brilliant salespeople. I'd got people who could do the most fantastic business planning. But if you've got to have a crib sheet telling them that year 10 is the equivalent of fourth year,
right.
and then literally, and then they're going and trying to speak to head teachers, or they're speaking to parents. So it's a beautiful finessing of my ideal client, who I was looking for. So when franchisors talk initially about how do you get off the ground, see it philosophically as the beta. I'm going to do 2 years of a roll through of what's right. Don't sell it at a lesser cost. Don't do an introductory offer, and certainly don't frame it with the franchisees that they're a bunch of guinea pigs. But as the franchisor, have that mentality that you are learning with them. And where I used to unravel in the first instance was, they looked to me as the expert. Well, I am the expert on running a tuition business. My tuition business with 20 years experience as a teacher. But how do I teach you to do it? And that's what I was learning to do.
Yeah, it's that how do you codify it and create resources to do that and make it reproducible and all the rest of it. Yeah. Very good. So I think we're coming up to about half an hour now. So I just would like to finish off with, it sounds like, you know, you've gone through that pain of like being on camera, like, you know, most of us face. I think you're certainly not alone. I think probably I've only met one or two people who ever, well, I don't think if anybody's ever said, well, I can't wait to be on camera today. You know, it's not, just doesn't happen. I've had some people practically run down the corridor when they see me coming, like, oh no, I've got to do that stupid video, you know. So that's most people's response. So having got through that, what would your top 3 tips be for franchisors wanting to create some video content so that people can stalk them?
One of the things that I think video, because we talked about that a lot, obviously, video is part of a big jigsaw puzzle of marketing. Okay. First and foremost, do not consider video unless you know what you want to say. Video is the solution to your messaging. It is not the messaging. So when people sit around a table and go, right, we need to do videos. No, we need to work out what we want to say first, and then which different mediums are we going to use. So the first tip I would give somebody who's looking into the world of video is, know what you want that video to achieve and what message you want that to get out. Because otherwise, you're just phoning around and going, hi, yeah, we need videos because every man and his dog's putting videos on. No, take a step back. We're using video at our conference this year, and we're doing it really, really cleverly. We're working with a team of guys, and we know we want videos that are going to reach a variety of different audiences: parents, children, potential franchisees, head teachers, because they are all the stakeholders in our business.
Yeah.
Okay. And every single one of those videos will have a very different message, very different purpose, and a very different audience. But when you've established a really good working relationship with your production team, and you have got a brand strategy that has your clear messaging for each of those stakeholders, for the deliverers, for the receivers, you understand your value proposition for each and every one of them, then the last thing those guys need to be doing is thinking about what's being said, because all of that messaging is embedded within our training with our franchisees. So they're on message. They know what the messaging is that sits behind Conexus, who we are, what our values are, what our ethos is, what we are hoping to achieve. So the best piece of advice I can give you is video's brilliant because it can use different, it can kill more than one bird with one stone, okay? But only if you know what you're saying. Because there is
I think absolutely, like my first question with everyone is like, well, who's the audience for this? And then when you realize the audience and you say, well, hang on a sec, you said you were going to do this. And I'm like, that doesn't, you know, like they won't care about that, you know. And so absolutely, it's always got to start with like who you're talking to, right? And I found that already working with one franchisor I can think of, you know, sort of rejigged their messaging, or rather not rejigged their messaging, but rejigged what we were going to do because what they were proposing just didn't meet what they were trying to achieve, you know.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I would do is be very clear on what you want to say. The next piece of advice I would give is what I give in most situations: don't overthink it. Do not overthink it, because one of the things, they can very, very quickly become vanity projects. Okay. You actually get to the point where you're like, oh my word, my business has got so successful that we're having corporate videos done, or we've got talking heads, or we've got this and we've got that. And you overthink and you're making decisions on whether a plant should go here or a plant should go there. Actually, your video will probably be watched more by yourself than it will by the hordes of people you think are going to be watching it.
Yeah, yeah.
The video is not suddenly going to become a box office special, all right? Remember what it is doing. It is putting a third dimension into an existing and very well structured marketing strategy. It is one piece of a jigsaw puzzle. It's not the jigsaw puzzle. So don't overthink it. See it as a supportive mechanism not the real deal.
It's a
Okay.
tool at the end of the day, right? It's an
Yeah.
absolute tool. Yeah.
And the last one is don't pay through the nose. Don't let them come in and have your pants down with regard to thinking there should be thousands upon thousands and thousands of pounds. It isn't, and it shouldn't be. Do not let video skew your budget because you've ended up with a big vanity project where money could be used elsewhere. It is affordable. There are great companies out there who can do you the most wonderful things for under a couple of grand. You should not be talking massive budgets unless you can genuinely justify that with a return on your investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So they would be my 3 pieces of information.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thanks for your time on today. You've been brilliant, giving me lots to think about. It's really helpful as I'm going to get to know the world of franchising more and more. So thank you very much.
My absolute pleasure.
And thank you for watching, and join me next week where we'll have another franchisor talking about video and the world of content marketing in franchising. Thank you for watching.